This is breaking news with Brad Bearclaw. On today's
What's up, fam? Welcome to this week's episode of Off the Reservation, a show that has its own special blend of 11 herbs and spices. I'm your number one wizard, Mal.
I'm Al.
The son of Picasso.
You're back with the wizard, huh?
Yeah, I'm the wizard.
Hey, that's a nice shirt you got there.
Oh, thank you. We recently designed these shirts.
Yeah.
So if you're interested,
We are currently
back.
looking into ways for getting them manufactured and everything. But I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say we're getting pretty close. If we decide to start selling them, and do you guys want?
yeah, take a
So
look.
yeah, check it out. It's looking pretty good. How you guys doing this week?
Pretty good. How about you guys?
It's been
Not
moving,
bad.
man.
Not bad. Did you guys hear about that thing about Ben Stiller?
Yeah. No, that I think I got in with you guys on that. I showed you guys. So I guess we'll go. That's what our today's episode is about.
Wait, okay. Let's just
Let's
talk,
just roll
man.
with it. Okay.
We're just talking. No, but I did see something about Ben Stiller this week.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it was maybe last week. In
Well-
any case, people are drudging up some stuff about Tropic Thunder. Y'all remember Tropic Thunder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't remember Tropic Thunder if you grew up in like the early 2000s? You know
Play
what I mean?
footsies with me?
Behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, what was it? That movie came out in like 2008.
Yeah, it was like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But I saw someone like call him out on Twitter or something, right?
Yeah, so I'm not sure where it came about. I mean, I only saw that he was responding to a tweet by Benny S.
Oh yeah, and that was the biggest thing is that like people throw stuff out on Twitter. That's the funny
Yeah.
thing is like people can @ somebody on Twitter and it's like you're not gonna get replies. When it becomes news is like when that celebrity or personality replies directly to and comments to your thing, right?
Well, yeah, and,
Power of technology.
Right. Well, that's when people are like, oh, this is serious. Like they read this and now they're like feel like they need to reply to it.
well that was the whole thing is like this Benny S. He basically went on about like, hey, why are you apologizing for Tropic Thunder? It was a great movie. You know, all of us, we need to, calm down with this wokeness and let this movie be a great example of, of cinema, whatever it was.
Yeah.
We
So
all
he was
know-
saying that Ben Stiller apologized for it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And Ben Stiller ended up coming out and was like, dude, I never apologized for this. Like, I think he said, like, I make no apologies for Tropic Thunder. Don't know who told you that. It's always been controversial movie since we opened. Proud of it and the work everyone did on it. And, the whole thing is about Robert Downey Jr. playing blackface.
Yeah.
And, that was the joke behind it is like, Euro Americans have been playing other races for generation. You look back.
That was probably the biggest like controversy out of that movie.
His Simple Jack, I
Yeah,
think, was
yeah. There's also that portion of
overshadowed
it.
it.
Yeah. I completely forgot about that whole.
I did forget about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that movie does have a few problems, maybe, but
Which like who was it? I think it was Robert Downey Jr. had done an interview with Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan was like,
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, he was like Joe Rogan like asked him like, hey, like what happened with that when
Yeah.
And he was like, oh no, like I thought it was gonna be way worse, but everyone was way more upset about the Simple Jack that
So he even acknowledged that like the Simple Jack like.
yeah.
Oh.
And so, yeah, I mean, like, if you look at it, Tropic Thunder wasn't even supposed to be like a serious film. Like, it wasn't like a serious, like, hey, this is
The whole
thing.
context for like the blackface in that movie is that He was a white actor. He's Australian, right?
He's Australian.
He's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed actor that like took his role too far, right?
Yeah, and that was
he like underwent skin pigmentation operation. And that's like the joke, right? It's like poking fun at the Daniel Day-Lewises of the world that are like, I went and cobbled shoes for a whole year to prepare to be a shoe cobbler in this movie,
like James Franco, like I lived as a homeless man for like a year and a half just to see how it was like.
and I think that was the funny thing is like at the same time they had Robert Downey Jr. playing the what was he, the Kirk Lazarus, while they had Brandon T. Jackson playing Alpha. And so
Al Pacino,
yeah. And so like obviously like all of it was parodied, and it was supposed to parody all these Vietnam movies.
It's neat because they used the Al Pacino character to be the sounding board, to be like, dude, you are way out of bounds here. You know what I mean?
You know what they should have done is they should have one-upped it. They should have had a black guy playing a white guy, playing a black guy, playing a white guy. You know what I mean? They should have just like went full circle around it, and they would have.
Like a Dave Chappelle kind of a thing.
I'm a dude playing a dude.
Oh yeah, there you go. You're gonna have Dave Chappelle as that news anchor.
Yeah. With his white voice. Well, yeah. All right. So that was the big thing. But then this like kind of sparked like something that I was thinking about, right? How like woke, the term woke. Like it made me think about it because it's been used so much in like mainstream media, right? Like woke.
Yeah,
the woke
I think
mob,
I heard.
woke
The woke mob came for him. You know.
Yeah. That's what the headlines was, right?
which is now become synonymous with the cancel culture.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at it, like, so we got curious as to what the woke, where its origin was.
Yeah.
And that was with what was it, Marcus Garvey.
Yeah.
In 1923, he.
That's where like a lot of people attribute that term to come from, woke.
Yeah.
In his quote,
Marcus Garvey. So Marcus Garvey wrote in 1923, "Wake up Ethiopia, wake up Africa," and it's all supposed to tie in back to this like ideology of this political awareness of like who we are socially, the social inequalities of African Americans, and which has like transcended into, you know, all the other minorities within, you know, the United States and outwards.
And you were saying like you remember this kind of coming out of like black culture, hip hop culture, right? When you first kind of heard the term.
Yeah, like I remember growing up, especially in '90s music. You know, you had like bands like A Tribe Called Quest, and it was that whole like knowledge of self. And then I remember, you know, being in a part of the cannabis culture, hearing that idea of being woke. But it was more the idea of your third eye being like, you know, open, and you being aware of like the social ills in, you know, people of color's community and why they're there, and it's not a coincidence that they're there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That these things are put in place to keep us down as people of color.
So like an awareness of like social,
of systemic racism.
Yeah.
You know,
inequalities, things like that. Yeah.
Whether they're microaggressions or macroaggressions. I mean, you know, there's a difference between somebody coming out and like specifically like saying a racist or derogatory term towards you versus the minor aggressions of like being like, oh, I have a black friend, or I have a Indian friends, I have these things. And it's all these things that are meant to accept and pronounce you as an other.
So like, all right, so that's kind of where it came from, right? And that's how it was used until about what, 2010, around there, somewhere in the late 2000s, late 2000s, early 2010s.
It became real catchy.
Yeah, it became a slogan, right?
Yeah.
It became I mean, for like just being real, like it was hijacked. You know what I mean? Like the term was hijacked, and a lot of people agree that was around the time where it was hijacked by like, say, like different corporations and different like entities to try to align themselves with what would be considered maybe disingenuous, ingenuine, or like just like they were jumping on the bandwagon to try to
you
like
saw brands like Nike like align themselves with woke athletes to try to, you know, be an ally to the community.
right,
so to
an
say.
ally, yeah.
Or
That's,
just
that's
like how on Facebook you can like companies were changing during Pride Month. They'll change
Yeah.
it to the Pride flag.
right.
And it's like, no, they still want your money. They're just saying like, hey, we're cool with you.
Yeah,
you
well,
know?
except Chick-fil-A. No. But really though, like, at some point it would like became like a, hey, look at us, like we're using this word.
We're woke.
We're woke. We're here with you, you know.
Yeah.
And so it kind of became that term, you know. Like I think that was even something in You People, right? We talked about that before.
Yeah.
Isn't that something that like his parents were like, oh yeah, no, we're woke. We're woke. You know, we're hip. We're hip to the whatever. It's like what?
What was it? She says, I've seen Charles Barkley, or you know, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, but like that's really like where that word like started to go towards, and it almost became a joke. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's funny because like, all right, so like the liberal side, right, the left side, they like started to use that.
They wanted those votes. They
Yeah,
were
you
like,
know?
we got a candidate coming. We want to be woke. We're your ally.
And in turn, it turned the right side to now demonize the word woke,
Ooh,
and
woke,
it was
yeah.
like weaponized, like
Oh
you
yeah,
said, right?
like I was telling you guys earlier, I heard a guy get interviewed today, and she's like, "What does woke mean to you?" And he's like, "It's anti-family values."
Right.
And it's like, what?
It started to turn into just something completely
like,
different.
And it you see the ignorance.
Yeah.
You know, this
Yeah.
guy had no idea where the origins came from. It just, you know, he heard a bandwagon term and he was just like fed it by the right and was like, I got to repeat this. Because
sure.
this is what I heard. This is what I heard on a podcast. So that's what it means. You
Yeah,
know?
and that's what you're like listening to on the news, right? Like the headline is woke this, woke that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And depending on which side of the aisle you sit on, it could mean two different things.
Oh, it was a fire, and you
But-
could tell like they were like, we got to tamp this out, and if we can make it seem uncool, like the guy with the like, you know, the nerdy guy is like woke with you, you're not going to want to be a part of this movement, you know.
It just like reminds me of like the old Dare thing. Like my friend used to be fun, and now they're just a deflated bag of bones.
Oh,
sitting on
that
the-
was such propaganda. They
Yeah.
were what were they doing? They were daring you to try it. They were like, and like I remember sitting there in 5th grade, and like the cop pulled out crack, and he's like, "You see this, kids? This is crack." And
He's got that crazy look in
like,
his eye.
I had never seen crack before. Like everybody in my class had never seen crack before.
That's flour, isn't it?
You know what I'm saying? And it was like you were the one
is that?
introducing it to
What's
the
that
community.
You
Like,
go down to 54th. For, you ask for Tyro.
That's where you're getting it.
That's where you get it.
But like, you know, like this term has come through all kinds of stuff. But I think the biggest thing that woke has done, unfortunately, is taken away from real issues that people should be
Yeah.
aware of, that should be like on the scope of
real
like,
social issues that
Yeah.
affect the community.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like if you look at it, like the things that it's like we're talking about Ben Stiller and his movie from 15 years ago, and how blackface is wrong. Like everyone knows blackface is wrong. Maybe politicians and some other, you know, comedians may not feel that way
Yeah.
or feel like that's like you look at it, the intent, and I think intent is the big thing.
Well, it almost feels like we focus on the wrong thing. So this is
Yeah.
something you brought up with us.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
it takes away, you know, from current movements. Like
Yeah.
right now, you know, there's protesters protesting Cop City. I don't know if you guys have heard of that.
No.
And it's going down right now in Atlanta. And like these are like native lands, right? And like how I heard about it was, well, let me rephrase it. It's been going on now for like the last 2 years. And it's information that, you know, you hear second, third hand
Yeah.
reposted, and it's nothing that you can really verify. You just know that these things are going on.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a few days ago, I saw, you know, some Native sisters post their interaction with the Atlanta City Council. And, you know, it's like these things are happening on Native lands. And as stewards of, you know, the earth, if we don't bring light to this, then, we're not doing our jobs.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, what if you could show part of the video?
This is that video you showed me. What are we watching? What is this? It says yesterday members of the Muskogee Creek Nation delivered a letter of eviction to Mayor Andre Dickens of Atlanta, informing the mayor the city must immediately vacate their lands.
And keep in mind, like, this is a fake city that was made to help police militarize and pretty much round up, citizens and help, training ground.
Objection! Objection. We have a letter being delivered from the Muskogee Creek Nation on behalf of Muskogee Creek spiritual leadership in opposition to Cop City.
I came all the way on the Trail of Tears to deliver this letter to you folks. We want you to know that the contemporary Muskogee people are now making their journey back to our homelands, and hereby give notice to Mayor Andrew Dickens, the Atlanta City Council, the Atlanta Police Department, the Atlanta Police Foundation, the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office, and so-called Cop City, that you must immediately vacate Muskogee homelands and cease violence and policing of Indigenous and Black people in Muskogee lands. We also ask for an independent investigation into the assassination of our relative Tortuguita, and that the charges be dropped against Wulani Forest defenders.
And so if you want to stop it there, that's actually where I heard that, and I instantly had to go to look to see who I can't even say it. Yeah, well, so I ended up finding out his name was Manuel Turan. That was his name, but people in his circle knew him as what she mentioned. And, you come to find out that, he was a part of the Forest Defenders and trying to keep them from, expanding this Cop City. And, these, Forest Defenders were hunted down. They weren't given, the same, they weren't given their Miranda rights. They weren't, taken into custody and taken before a judge. That he was literally executed. And, and not only was he executed, but then the evidence was swept under the rug, and they really tried to suppress the police body cam footage. They outright lied and said that the Forest Defenders were trying to, exchanging gunfire back and forth.
Right.
And, we also...
But there's various accounts that are
and these are Forest Defenders. They're in the trees. They're sitting in the trees, and they have a very passive way of protesting.
Yeah.
And we all know
just
that...
through, like, what was it? Occupation.
Yeah, and we all know that the minute a police officer says that they feel like their lives in danger, then it gives them right to murder citizens. And, these are the laws that have to change. These are where, the laws are enacted to help keep the systemic racism and help them sweep it under the rug when they see it fit.
Well, from CNN, so the CNN website, they had covered this, and they said that Manuel was found. Let's see. The further autopsy shows that he was in a seated position, cross-legged, and then killed. And he had, I think they had said something about both hands having holes in them. So, which, we all know that when you're being arrested, the police have you sit on your knees, you cross your legs, and then put your hands behind your head so that way they can easily, reach around, put you in handcuffs. But he had a bullet hole through both hands and I'm assuming through his head. And so, that just shows that more than likely he was executed.
And the biggest thing here is that, like, this isn't like getting national news. This is like, this happens a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we're in different situations, obviously, but it's happening, and we as citizens aren't always aware of what's going on. And it's hard to depend on, any particular news source to give you the full story. It's almost like in the term of being woke, you know what I mean? You need to wake up and see what's happening around you. And so, like, in the terms of what woke has done, I feel like it's put these types of stories, these types of
it's pushed them to the back, and it's almost demonized them. It's made to where anytime you see that name woke, you're automatically designed to feel negative towards it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like these types of things, like you think of the Acorn Flats in Arizona. there's been an occupation of the Apache tribe trying to keep control of their native homelands. You have the Starlight Tours.
I will say this, like, while yes, there's a lot of social justice issues happening with like various different cultures, there is a lot happening with native peoples that like just don't ever see the light of day because maybe we're being overshadowed. You know what I'm saying? But that's why I don't think we can all depend on mainstream media. Even if we were, even if they were to report on, there's so much stuff happening in the world that like it might never see the light of day because there's just that many more things happening. Yeah. You know, but if it's important to you, if it's your people, it's important to you.
And that's the thing is like the deck is stacked against you as a listener because the information is filtered as it comes to you. Yeah. So you have to wake up, so to say, and seek this information out. And that's almost the idea of originally being woke is you are aware that shit ain't right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not coincidence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And once you're able to see past that, then you can start the quest of really waking up to your surroundings and see things as they really are.
Yeah.
And you know, I also see that a lot of I think the reason why woke is being targeted right now is because you see the lines being blurred now between cultures, right? Yeah. You have a lot of newly poor white folk coming over and they're realizing, shit, my skin color doesn't save me economically. Do you know what I mean? I'm just as poor and in the same situation as the people of color.
Yeah.
And it's stacked against me. Do you know what I mean? And that side, the right is waking up and the overseers are seeing that and they're like, how do we stomp this fire down? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a crazy time to be alive, but it's also an amazing time to be alive because, you know, I always felt like being native, I missed out on the Indian Wars and like missed out on the cultural shift, right? But now,
they're still happening.
But they're still happening.
Yeah,
it's like
different
holy
way, but...
shit! Like the fact that our DNA lived this far.
Yeah.
Like we almost owe it to ourselves to see it out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because whether you want to agree or not, we see Rome imploding. Like we see the homelessness on the street.
Yeah.
Like we see banks being foreclosed, right? So we as Native people, as survivors, we've already survived one Holocaust. We've already survived one apocalypse. We can survive this, and we're going to survive this because we've lived with these problems that the new poor are just now having to deal with. They're just now having to deal with shitty
We're
water.
old poor. They're new poor.
Like they're having to deal with shitty education. They're having to deal with their own governments going out of business because they're corrupt.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so it's like we have been at this level for a minute now. So now that the playing field's leveled, what are we gonna do? Like, let's get to the top now.
My wife, she was like, "Oh, I need to schedule a doctor's appointment," and so she went and went through the process and was like, "Hey, I need an appointment." They're like, "Okay, we can see you in like 2 months," and she was like, "What? Why is it taking it so long?" And it's like, because we don't have enough doctors, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, that's like how it is at IHS. Doctors keep going and going and going. I have my next doctor's appointment is set for like maybe next year.
I got one in the next couple of years.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. Well, guys, look, get out there. If you're more interested in learning more about Cop City, check it out. Cop City, Atlanta. Find out what's happening. Find out how you can help. And wake up.
I just want to say prayers and blessings to Manuel's family.
Yeah.
And I also want to say ACAB.
Guys, thanks for joining us today.
And we'll be seeing you next week with another episode of Off the Reservation.
Off the Reservation.